Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, nobody cares if the backups work, only if the restore does. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Nobody cares if the backups work, only if the restore does. We have a server that is, for all practical purposes, the company. It runs our point of sale system, tracks inventory, handles orders, keeps all the accounting records, everything. In short, it is very important. There are many quirks to this system. We recommend you don't run this function, even if we told you to, and it's a horrible mishmash of contradictory ideas bolted together over the decades, and it's the worst system out there except for all the rest. It's the only one that scales up enough to meet our needs, that is designed specifically for the type of retail we are. All in all, it does what we need it to do, even if we want to light it on fire occasionally. The old server was at the end of its life cycle, so we replaced it. The new server cost more than my car, not surprisingly. Because it is very important, we do nightly backups, with provisions to recover stuff that occurs to the day if we have to, but that's not part of this tale. The normal backups are to a network device, which in turn transfers an encrypted copy to the cloud run by the vendor we got this very important server that cost more than my car from. Sometimes, it doesn't work quite perfectly. So we have a backup tape drive. Normally, the tape drive is left turned off, but if we have issues, or think we might possibly have issues, or someone driving by on the street said the word issues, it's easy to turn back on. We're a little paranoid, from painful experience, about backups, so it is not optional. So we replaced this very important server that costs more than my car, and the new one, of course, includes a tape drive, and even included enough brand new tapes for a weekly cycle, plus a spare, and not one but two cleaners. Very generous of them. Except that when I start to label the tapes, it will label one, but not be able to read the label. And after that first time, it won't relabel the same tape either, but will label another brand new one, but not read it afterwards. Various errors appear on the little tiny LED display on the front of the drive, including asking for the cleaning tape several times in the space of a half hour. Sigh. Well, it's brand new, and we have the highest level of warranty available from the manufacturer, and a service contract that also costs more, per year, than my car. They'll make it work. Eventually. And it's the backup to the backup, so to speak, so it's not exactly an emergency. So far. So our vendor remotes in and logs into the IDRAC system, and pokes and prods, and does tests, and consults with the tea leaves, and perhaps sacrifices a chicken to the elder gods, and decides that it is not, in fact, the wrong tapes, as they had originally thought, but just a bad, brand new, major brand name, drive. So they consult with the manufacturer, and do some more poking and prodding and reading of tea leaves, and perhaps move up to sacrificing a goat to the elder gods, and the manufacturer sends out a tech to replace the drive. This is basically what we expect, though it took longer than it should have, which is today. It wasn't the same day. I'm in the field at another location when the tech arrives, and my boss, bless his black heart, while more tech-savvy than most, does not think to test the drive before the tech leaves. He, the boss, bless his black heart, that is, was anxious to get the server back up and running and the stores back online. I get back, and go to start labeling the tapes, and they won't even go in the drive. No power LED on the front, nothing. Like it has no power. Sigh. I felt the odds were that the tech didn't get a cable plugged in quite right, but I wasn't going to open the case of a very important server that cost more than my car, that was brand new with a factory warranty that was less than a week old. So another call to the vendor, who calls the manufacturer, who arranged to send out another, different, tech. Just in case it was two bad drives in a row, they ship another replacement directly to us, which gets delayed in shipping, and is scheduled to arrive half an hour after the store closes, which is to say, 9:30 p.m., on a Friday, when weekends are the busiest days of the week. So I rescheduled the tech's arrival with the dispatcher for early Monday. 10 minutes later, the tech calls, wondering if I knew that his arrival had been rescheduled and why. Communications is a wonderful thing, and they should try some. So Monday arrives, as does the tech, and 8 a.m. had become 11 a.m., and I spend half an hour trying to track down the package that the shipper confirmed was delivered that morning, with a signature that matched one of our employees. Remember that 9:30 p.m. Friday delivery time? We're open both weekend days for longer hours than the shipper works, and we tell the stores to go offline for a short time for what should be a simple job. A short time, indeed. The tech opens the case, and sure enough, as soon as he touched the cable, it came off in his hand. The first tech hadn't plugged it in right, or really, at all. Button the case back up, fire that baby up, and we have a power LED on the front of the drive. Whoopee! It takes a good 10 minutes for it to go through the hardware checks and actually boot up, but the drive takes the tape. The tech agrees to hang out long enough for me to label a tape and read the label back to make sure everything is working. Except everything isn't working. The labeling program gets to where it's starting the process and just sits there for way longer than it takes to label a tape. No error, no timeout, just sits there. Sigh. We managed to deduce the new password, don't ask, for the iDRAC and get logged into it, and we find no evidence of any tape drive anywhere, though neither of us really knew where to look, nor do I see it in the hardware configuration screen in the admin panel of the live server. So the tech calls for backup, an engineer of some sort at the manufacturer's internal support desk. And he's very knowledgeable. Perhaps too knowledgeable, and easily distracted by brightly colored objects, like the computer screen in front of him, and every on-topic thing he says leads to an aside to a tangent to an interesting factoid and so on. And he talks at about half the normal speed for human beings. But he knows where to look for the tape drive and the iDRAC. Another reboot later, we can clearly see the drive and the iDRAC, so the hardware appears to be working correctly. But there's still no evidence of it in the admin panel on the live server. Okay, I'm not actually all that surprised. It's not uncommon to have to manually reinitialize the drive within the backup software, which is well beyond my skill set and the passwords I have, but something our vendor will handle with ease. Not the factory tech's problem, at any rate, and he has other calls. So after listening to the engineer give us the complete history of goat sacrifices, with an aside on the personality profiles of the elder gods and why the color purple is superior in all respects to the flavor of lima beans, we wrap it up, and I let the tech go. Within a few minutes of him leaving, I find the tape drive listed in the admin panel. Apparently, it will automatically recognize a hardware change, but requires a reboot afterwards to use the new setting, and still takes some time to get everything set up. It's frustrating when I have no idea why something's not working, but it's terrifying when I have no idea why it started working again. But it will now label the tape, and read the label. Victory over the forces of chaos at last. So I turn on the tape backup for the final, real, only test that matters that night. Will it actually perform a backup? Come in the next morning and there's no backup in the log, not even a failed attempt. Sigh. This is becoming tedious. But before I spend a half hour digging through the logs, and bother our Platinum account rep when I don't understand what I'm seeing, I notice that the backup history has transferred over from the old server, and that the last tape backup was on tape A, which happens to be the same tape that was inserted. And, like any good backup system for a very important server that cost more than my car, that is the heart and soul of a multi-state retail chain that does many millions of dollars a year of business, it won't do a backup over what it believes is the most current tape, even if the actual tape in the drive is blank, and a different, and completely incompatible type. So in the end, the backup failed because everything was working right. And now the main backups are failing sporadically because we're using the old server for training, and every time we plug it into the network, it messes up something relating to the network backup. Even though we have A, turned off the service, B, changed all the settings for the service to point to places that don't exist, and C, delicensed the backup software. But at least the tape backups on the working server work now.